Alright guys, another week and we are back for our championship score predictions. Let's jump into these. Guys, we're back to another video on the channel. It's all happening in the Championship at the moment. We've got a bunch of sort of midweek football going on at the moment with all the rearranged matches taking place. We're getting towards the end of the transfer window now, so all of that's hotting up in terms of clubs getting deals over the line. And of course, we are back with our weekend predictions as well. So as always, make sure to get your thoughts and score predictions in the comments down below. We've got some belting matches coming up this weekend. And as always, if you do go to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Apart from that though, let's jump into this one. And so starting out with tonight's match, it's Huddersfield going up against Stoke, and I'm particularly interested to see what the outcome of this one is, to be honest with you, because it felt like a week or so ago that Stoke had got themselves back up and going. You know, that performance away at Hull was really fantastic actually. Their midfield absolutely dominated that game. Had that game against Fulham, albeit they lost, but they seemed to go sort of toe-to-toe with them, and then they had that quite disappointing 1-0 defeat against Coventry. They're going up against Huddersfield, who are probably the most informed, or one of the most informed sides in the Championship at the moment. They've got the longest current unbeaten run, 8 matches without defeat. Last time was that absolute bonkers 7-goal thriller against Reading as Danny Ward scored a hat-trick. I saw a great stat on Twitter as well that Danny Ward's the first player to score a hat-trick for Huddersfield since 2014, when it was Danny Ward who also scored their last hat-trick for them, which I found quite a fun one. But Huddersfield just seem to have something about them at the moment, and this unbeaten run has come at a point of the season where I'll have to admit I thought this would be the point where a few sort of cracks would start to show. You know, the pressure from the teams below them, likes of the Nottingham Forests and the Middlesbroughs, maybe would start to get to them a little bit, but they've maintained their form and if anything have only trended upwards. So for this game I'm going to back Huddersfield. I think I'm going to go 2-1 to the home side. Stoke have just been a little bit too unreliable lately in terms of consistency. FIFA's going 1-0 Huddersfield. Next up then, and into the Saturday games, we've got Barnsley going up against Bournemouth. Now, Barnsley can't seem to catch a break at the moment, can they? It was another really dismal performance in midweek, shipping 3 goals against Nottingham Forest. And, I mean, this is an interesting game because Bournemouth themselves haven't been great lately. It's just 2 wins from their last 10 Championship matches now, which is really quite a dismal run given the form of Blackburn, Fulham pulling away recently and some of the teams below them. You know, QPR really picking up the slack lately as well. I saw a good interview from a Bournemouth fan after their most recent match when they sort of described what's been going wrong for them lately, sort of describing how Bournemouth have been playing well in sort of broken up 10-minute patches throughout games. I think that's been a trend with Bournemouth for quite some time. It was certainly the case in the Luton game when at one point it looked like they were getting back into it, but a couple of lapses, once again a poor start to that game really cost them. Against Hull, when they didn't get that goal in the first half, the momentum just seemed to be lost in the second half. But Barnsley have been so woeful this season. I do feel like if Bournemouth get a goal early on, I can see them getting back to winning ways in this one. I'm going to go 3-0 Bournemouth in this game. They have the quality in the final third to see off a team like Barnsley at the moment, so I'll go 3-0 Bournemouth. FIFA's going 1-0 Bournemouth. Next then to Craven Cottage for Fulham up against Blackpool. Now, I think this is a bit more difficult to predict than what originally meets the eye, particularly when we consider that we don't know how strong Fulham are actually going to be coming into this game. I certainly don't think that it's going to be the case of them scoring 6 or 7 in this one. I do think this one will be a little bit tighter, obviously. For their trip to Stoke, they were without Mitrovic and Wilson, both due to illness. They've had other players away on international duty, although a bit of a booster to their squad. I think Seri is now back with the team, so whether he comes straight back in from being away on international duty, time will tell. But yeah, I mean, Fulham still have the quality to cope without Mitrovic and Wilson. They've got that luxury to go ahead and do so. You know, Muniz slipping in, and Bobby Reid as well, who scored that fantastic goal against Stoke last time out. Blackpool will make it tough for Fulham, and as we saw earlier on in the season, could throw a spanner in the works here. You know, they were and have been one of the few sides to take full advantage of Fulham so far this season, taking 3 points off them earlier on. I do think that Fulham will just edge this one, but I don't think it'll be a battering for Blackpool. I'm going to go 2-1 Fulham in this game, with FIFA going 2-0 Blackpool, which would be quite the result. Next up then for Hull up against Swansea. Shota Valde is taking charge of his first game at Hull, which should be an interesting one. And there does seem to be a real buzz around Hull at the moment. You know, their last home game with all the fans properly being back in the stadium since the takeover The atmosphere was absolutely booming there, especially compared to what it was like towards the end of the sort of Alam era, when the club just looked tired, really. And there seems to be a new lease of life which has been breathed into that team, and that's reflecting on the pitch at the moment. It was a brilliant result last time out against Bournemouth. I did a bit of a deeper dig into some of their defensive statistics since they've switched to this three at the back, and since Nathan Baxter's come in there. It's been chalk and cheese compared to what they were sort of doing at the start of the season in terms of the goals they were conceding, how well Baxter's actually done. He's top of so many championship metrics in terms of goalkeepers this season, and I think this one will be a pretty tight match. Swansea obviously got that win against North End at the weekend. Midweek they had a goalless draw against QPR. Flynn Downs will be a miss for this one though. He was shown a second yellow card in that draw to QPR after a bit of a scuffle was kicking off towards the end of that game, and maybe with that new manager bounce, full stadium in there, I'm just going to edge Hull for a 1-0 win in this one, with FIFA going 2-0 Swansea. Next up then to Luton up against Blackburn. Really interesting game this one. Both sides playing well at the moment. Blackburn's win on Monday night against Middlesbrough, I'd arguably go as far to say that's their best win of the season so far. Not in terms of performance, but in terms of the magnitude, the players they were missing from their starting 11 in that one, considering the run that Middlesbrough were on going into that game. Recent results as well with other teams around the top of the table. That result just felt massive for Blackburn, particularly with Bournemouth's recent stuttering run. But this is going to be a tough one. Kenilworth Road, Luton have been pretty good so far at taking points off the teams in and around the top of the table. Recently taking points off both Fulham and Bournemouth. Luton have been fairly inconsistent in some of the matches so far this season, but they do tend to save their best type of performances for these sorts of games, full of energy and things like that. Luton themselves got a good win in midweek, 2-1 against Bristol City. Adebayo back in with the goals as well. With Blackburn still missing a few players, Brereton not yet back for this one either. I'm going to go for a draw for this one. I'm going to say it'll end as a 1-1. FIFA's back in Luton. I don't necessarily think a point will be a bad result there for Blackburn. Next up then for Middlesbrough up against Coventry. A game where I don't see all too much being in this one either. Since Chris Wilder's come in at Middlesbrough, the tone has been set. Everyone's sort of been talking about them in terms of playoff candidates. But Coventry are only 2 points behind Borough and with the game in hand on them as well. So if they come up, and get 3 points from this one, really impressive stuff, and then the top 6 charge may be back on for Coventry. It was a good win for them in midweek. Gyökeres getting back within the goals with Matty Godden out at the moment. Having someone else to rely on was always going to be important, and Gyökeres, stepping up, had a brilliant start to the season, and then the goals just seemed to dry up a little bit as Godden got back into the side. But I struggle to split these two at the moment. Coventry are unbeaten in their last 5 away matches, albeit they do draw quite a few matches on the road. Middlesbrough will be looking to get back to winning ways after the disappointment at Ewood Park on Monday night. I think a draw or 1 goal either way probably separates this one. I'm just going to edge Borough maybe as the home side in this one. I'm going to go 2-1. FIFA's gone for a 1-1 draw. Wouldn't surprise me. Anything within that sort of 1 goal margin between these two. Next up then to the den for Millwall up against West Brom. Now I was at the Hawthorns in midweek to see West Brom firsthand, and they were really poor. It's been a bit of a dismal run that they've gone on recently, and are currently now in a position where they're nervously looking over their shoulders at the teams below them, looking to take one of those teams out of the top 6 at the moment. In terms of the side that looks the most likely to drop out at this point in time, we are probably looking at West Brom, which is something that I don't think anyone expected to say at the start of the season, but something doesn't seem right there at the moment. The whole atmosphere around the club, we've got the situation now with Ishmael and Sam Johnson having a bit of a falling out. He was completely left out of the squad against North End, which was quite interesting. Millwall themselves though haven't exactly been at their sparkling best recently. They're yet to pick up a win in this calendar year. Last time against Blackpool at Bloomfield Road, I thought it was a really quite poor performance actually. Probably missing a little bit of creativity and that spark which is provided by Jed Wallace. His future still very much up in the air as of recording. In terms of West Brom, they're looking to add a little bit more firepower to that squad. They're currently negotiating with Andy Carroll at the point of recording, so we'll be interested to see if anything comes of that. They were certainly missing a focal point in midweek. I don't think that in the absence of Daryl DK, Matty Phillips is the right man to sort of lead the line in that sort of position. But for a prediction in this one, I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1 in this one. It has the feeling that neither side can really afford afford to lose this. So I'll go 1-1. FIFA's going 1-0 Millwall. Next then to Deep Dale for Preston up against Bristol City. Preston having probably our best moment under Ryan Lowe in midweek in that 2-0 win over West Brom, where I thought it was thoroughly deserved, and probably I'd go as far to say our best performance under Lowe as well. Completely nullified West Brom to having next to nothing going forward, and our first clean sheet in quite some time as well, which was more than welcome. I can see quite a few goals being scored in this one. Bristol City were in action in midweek, quite a disappointing defeat in the end to Luton, but Kenilworth Road has been quite a tough place to go to this season. Bristol City do carry a goal threat with them. That forward three that they've been going with recently of Semenyo, Martin and Vyman has been clicking. You know, they have had a decent amount of chemistry between them. Having said that, they do allow chances at the other end of the pitch, so I can see goals being scored. A high scoring sort of 2-2, maybe even a 3-2, either way wouldn't surprise me for this one. I think I'm just going to edge it for Preston. I was really impressed with us in midweek. There were several standout performances. Alan Brown in the middle, I think, is really getting back to his best. I think he really suits this new system under Ryan Lowe down to a T. Seth Vandenberg was fantastic. Greg Cunningham had his best performance in quite some time as well. And Emile Rees obviously getting the goal alongside Cameron Archer. So I'm just going to edge North End for a 2-1. But like I say, maybe a 2-2, even a 3-3. I won't rule out at the moment between these two. But I'll just back North End. FIFA's going 1-0 Bristol City. Next then to QPR up against Reading. It was a draw for QPR in midweek against Swansea. That one finishing goalless. There did look to be a couple chances in that one. Obviously Swansea can be a little bit of a tricky customer to come up against with their play style, and this seems like a decent opportunity for QPR to go ahead and get back to winning ways. There has been some positivity for Reading in terms of the injury front. Looks like it's starting to be eased a little bit, dare I say it. You know, they've got Lucas Jow, who's now back in the frame, Yaku Mete, who's building himself back up. I think he's had some minutes recently with the under-23s. I think Ajaria could potentially be back for the weekend as well, albeit it is still looking like a pretty paper-thin squad heading into this one. And with the sheer amount of goals they're conceding at the moment, I think it is QPR that I am looking towards for all 3 points in this one. For a score prediction, I'm going to go 3-1 QPR. FIFA's going for a 0-0 draw. You'd like to think that QPR would probably fancy their chances in this one, given how Reading have looked recently. And that's the last game we've got going on Saturday. We have Peterborough going up against Sheffield United. Quite an interesting one for a number of factors. I've still not given up on Sheffield United making the top 6 this season, but they'll certainly need more performances and showings like they had at the weekend against Luton. I think that Sheffield United are a side where, in the right game, they can actually be quite dominant and controlling. They certainly have the players in the middle of the pitch to go ahead and do that. It's just that when a side properly is up for the game and is in their faces, it is pressing them and putting pressure on those outside centre halves, then a few mistakes can start to creep in. I'm not sure if Peterborough are the side that will do that in this one. Midweek was quite an interesting one for Peterborough, really. They looked a little bit sharper, dare I say it, for the first sort of 60 or so minutes in that game. Got their 2-goal lead against Birmingham, but the fallback later on could be so damning to their survival chances. We've also got the situation with Sarika Dembele at the moment, not involved in the squad in midweek, although Darren Ferguson did come out and say that that was due to an injury. He has been linked with a move away from Peterborough, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with him over the next few days. Parky was someone who really caught my eye though from that Peterborough game in midweek, seemed to link up really well with both Marriott and Clark Harris, who would lead the line in that one for Peterborough. In terms of a score prediction for this one though, I think it is Sheff Utd who I'm backing for it. I think they've got those players to control this game, and in the final third they are scoring more goals on deck and bottom now. So I'm going to go 3-1 Sheff Utd in this game. FIFA's going 2-0 Peterborough. Next up then, and into the Sunday matches, we've got Derby going up against Birmingham. This game having more significance than just the 90 minutes on the pitch. It looks like it's going to be a sold out Derby Stadium for this one, and I'm sure, you know, from both clubs there's going to be, you know, all sorts happening off the pitch in this one in terms of protests and things like that. But in terms of the actual football, tough game to call. Derby, a little bit sloppy last time out, dare I say it, against Nottingham Forest. I think that maybe the pressure got to them a little bit. They certainly had chances in that game, you know, thinking back to that Tom Lawrence chance in the first half, that sort of set the tempo for Derby after that. I remember, I think it was Nathan Byrne as well, had a very good chance at the far post as well, but just sliding to a defeat. Can they get back to winning ways in this one? I wouldn't rule it past them, because despite Birmingham having picked up a decent amount of points from their last 4 matches. I don't think the underlying performances have been great in either of them, really. They came to Deepdale. I didn't think they looked brilliant for that one. Then they had the Fulham game when they put 6 past them. Beat Barnsley, but everyone seems to be doing that at the moment. And then the game in midweek against Peterborough was another fairly sloppy one. Credit has to be given for the comeback. They showed a little bit of guts in that one, and a little bit of character. And I do think that, you know, over the next month or so, when these loanees have been properly bedded into the squad, that does improve them in terms of the quality that has come in January so far. But I just think that with Derby at home, their games tend to be quite tight. I think they may just edge this one with the crowd behind them and things like that. I'm just going to go 1-0 Derby. FIFA's going to go 2-0 Derby. Seems like a 1 goal either way sort of game, that one. Last of all, we then got Cardiff going up against Nottingham Forest. 2 sides who are going in polar opposite directions at the moment. Cardiff, I'm sure, will have had a nervous eye on the Peterborough game in midweek. They gained, albeit a small margin on them, as they picked up a point. It leaves Cardiff now just 3 points away from the relegation zone. It's not an easy game as well. Nottingham Forest are firing on all cylinders at the moment. 3 consecutive wins leaves them just 1 point behind Huddersfield now, and well within the playoff picture. If Steve Cooper manages to get this Forest side in the playoffs by the end of the season, considering where he took them over from, you know, towards the end of Sheff Utd, that would have been some achievement. But pretty comfortable for Forest in midweek. 3-0 against Barnsley. It was a 2-0 lead they had at half-time. Keenan Davis getting his first goal for the club as well, which will do him a world of good before Brennan Johnson finished them off in the second half. I think most people will have a Forest win in this one, and I think I'm following along on a similar thought process. Cardiff just conceding too many goals at the moment. I'm going to go 2-0 Forest in that one. FIFA's going 1-0 Cardiff. Boy, could they do with that at the moment. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. As always, make sure to get your score predictions in the comments down below. We've got some brilliant matchups coming up this weekend in the Championship. Get all your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do subscribe and stick around for some regular Championship content. Apart from that, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.